What's up, everyone? This is Alex Lieberman, co-founder and executive chairman of Morning Brew. Welcome back to Founder's Journal, my personal audio diary where I give you, the business builder, the tools you need to think better in order to build better, whether that's building a business, a team, or a new product. Today, I am talking about the Great Resignation. First, it's probably important to tell you what the Great Resignation actually is. So basically, since the pandemic started in March of 2020, we have seen an above average amount of people choosing to leave their jobs. In April of 2021, so basically a year after the pandemic started, there was a record set for the number of workers who quit their job in a single month. And then in July, a new record was set, and August, a new record was set. In July of this year, 4 million Americans quit their jobs voluntarily. And on top of that, there were a record 10.9 million open jobs at the end of July. But I think it's also important to drill into this a little bit and look at the Great Resignation, not just as this macro trend, but understand at an industry level, at a tenure level, how do things look similar or different? So for example, if we look at resignation rates based on tenure, what's interesting is normally you see highest resignation for junior employees because typically people are trying to figure things out early in their career, but actually rates are highest for mid-career employees between the ages of 30 and 45. And I think it kind of makes sense, mostly because mid-career employees have the ability to quit a job and sustain their lives for a little while where they don't necessarily need another job lined up. They have some money saved up in the bank to be able to live while they're searching. And also there's probably just more confidence from a mid-career employee that they've developed skills over the course of their career that there will be demand for at some point in time. I think it's also possibly because it's riskier for employers right now to hire less experienced people when you need to onboard them remotely, which just gives mid-career employees more leverage. And then on the industry side, resignation rates are highest in a few industries: tech, healthcare, food, and accommodations. I think it makes a ton of sense in industries like food and accommodation and especially healthcare also, where I can imagine for the bulk of the pandemic from March of 2020 to, let's call it, April of 2021, it was tough working in those roles. It was intense. I'm sure burnout was real. So seeing people leave those jobs now that there's an opportunity to, I think makes a ton of sense. Actually, in prepping for this episode, I ran a poll on Twitter where I asked people this question: are you thinking of leaving your job in the next 6 months? And I didn't really have a reference point, but directionally, it feels pretty high, the 1,200 people that answered this poll. 44% of the 1,200 said yes, they are thinking of leaving their job in the next 6 months. 38% said no, and 18% said not sure. So now I've set the stage of what the Great Resignation is. I want to talk about why is it happening? And the short answer is none of us know exactly. Anyone who tells you that they know exactly why, I think, is lying or has too much confidence in their opinions. But I think there's a ton of reasons, and I think all of these reasons contribute to this patchwork of higher than average resignation rates from jobs. The first reason is there's more opportunity to make money than ever before. First, it's a tight labor market. There's tons of open jobs, more demand than there is supply. Demand for knowledge workers has never been higher. We're also in a 10+ year bull market, so the economy is doing well right now. On top of that, I've talked about this in a past Founder's Journal, but I think we're in a golden age of entrepreneurship, and we're seeing that in the stats. Starts of new businesses is going through the roof. So I think a lot of people are seeing the possibility of working for themselves as a real possibility more than ever before. Second, I think the pandemic created perspective. Many of us were cooped up for months, spending time working or being by ourselves with a few people. And I think rather than, going out to dinners or activities with friends, we had a ton of time just to think and reflect on what it is that we actually want. I also think subconsciously that people start to really think about what matters to them in their work and in their life when they see a world-changing world pandemic happen, and you see hundreds of thousands of people in the US dying, and likely people close to you are affected. The third reason I think we're seeing the Great Resignation is the pandemic just changed expectations forever. The feasibility of flexible work was proven over this last 18 months. It made people realize that we probably should have been thinking a lot about remote work as employers and bosses prior to that. But now employees, more than ever before, expect to be able to work on their own terms because it's proven to be successful these last 18 months. The fourth reason is the pandemic burned people out. Working from home sets new expectations of the ability to spend time with family, but also it blurs the lines between work and life. And so I think millions of people have been working themselves to the point of exhaustion. They haven't been able to create the same division between work and living that we had to do when we were actually commuting to the office. And so I think people have just reached their tipping point and they need a break. Fifth and finally, I believe the pandemic just delayed pent-up demand for people to leave. People were uncertain in the thick of the pandemic what was happening in the world, and they were worried about their own finances. And so probably 6 to 12 months of people that were planning on leaving got delayed because they didn't want to search while there was so much uncertainty in the world. Now they're starting to restart the search that was already supposed to happen a year ago. And so now we have talked about what the Great Resignation is and what are the factors that could be causing it. Now more than ever, I believe that entrepreneurship is a big driver of it. Let's talk about, as a founder, an employer, or a manager, how we work through this. How do we deal with people deciding to leave our companies? The Great Resignation is a great thing. It is just holding owners of businesses and managers accountable for what should have been done before the pandemic and before employees decided to leave en masse. All this environment does is it creates perfect competition for us to run companies and manage people the right way. We should have ambitious, positive missions that people believe in. We should pay our people well. We should treat our people well. We should build cultures on strong foundations of values that we hire for those values. We should overstaff our team so that when we lose people inevitably, the machine of our company doesn't break. We should spend time up front educating our team members on what our business is, the history, and how it works, so people buy into not just the mission, but the way we do business. We should provide as much flexibility to our teams as possible. We should reward our best performers. We should set the right expectations when we hire people so they don't come into a job that is so different from what they were planning on doing. And we shouldn't try to keep people that don't want to be there. If you hear all of these things, it all sounds logical. It all sounds like things we should have been thinking about before. But the issue is in a market where you feel like if someone leaves, you can just instantly replace them, it leads to comfort and us being sloppy. And honestly, things like overstaffing. We hadn't been thinking about that in the past with Morning Brew. Things like setting the right expectation for people in their roles. I think we were poor at communicating those things in the early days. So I just think this is forcing us to run our companies in a better way. I actually think companies are going to be more successful because of this. And I think the best part is employees and people are going to be able to switch jobs and switch roles in a way that they will be able to optimize for making money, for doing what they enjoy, and working with people that they enjoy working with. So overall, I think the Great Resignation is a net positive, and I think it creates a ton of opportunity for us to be better builders. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have started a company or you're a manager, have you seen the Great Resignation happening firsthand, and how have you dealt with a lot of people deciding to quit their jobs at your company? And then on the flip side, if you're an employee, have you thought about leaving yourself? And why is it that you've thought about leaving if you have thought about it? Again, any responses I keep anonymous. I just love engaging these conversations with other founders or just people in the workforce. Shoot me an email at alex@morningbrew.com or DM me on Twitter @businessbarista with your thoughts on the Great Resignation. And also make sure to pound the subscribe button for Founders Journal on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. It is the #1 way to grow the show. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next episode. Thanks for watching Founders Journal. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want more great content around business, entrepreneurship, and career, you can hit the subscribe button below, and you can also hit the bell so you're notified every time we publish a new video. Take it easy.